Well, hello everyone. I am glad to have you on. If you are a regular attender of any of the webinars that I do, you'll know that I typically play some really nice classical music before we start. But tonight, the battery on my phone had gone dead, and so I didn't have that phone to be able to play in the background, and I couldn't do that. So I apologize for that. We began with dead silence, which is not normal for me. I like to have that little classical music playing. So I see we have a good number of people on tonight. We had a lot of people registered for this, and so hopefully we'll have a good turnout. And we'll see some amazing things happen tonight. So I'm looking here to see, we've got Walter on from North Thailand at 7 o'clock in the morning there. Walter helps me learn how to speak time zones, so I appreciate that, Walter. And Ramona from down the road here in Huntsville, Alabama. And then we have Connie, and who else do we have? If you're here, please feel free to announce yourself. I would like to know that you are on. That's the easiest way for me to tell, anyhow. So we're going to conduct this in much the same way, this webinar, much the same way that we would do if I were doing a live feed. And so feel free to, let me see here. I'm getting a request. I'm not sure what that request is, but I'm getting a request. So let's see. All right. All right, Steve, good to have you on. Anybody else? I know Jeremy's on. Sergio, good to see you. Good to have you on here. And Sergio coming to us from Mexico. So we have Walter from Thailand, Sergio from Mexico, and the rest of the folks are here from close by in the United States. So we'll get started. I never do a webinar longer than an hour. I try to hit out of here right at 1 hour so that we don't have a long night. I'm not a big fan of keeping people long. I'm a big fan of getting right to the heart of the matter. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to get to the heart of the matter. Purpose of this webinar, focus of it, and the title is to change your world. Now, it would be wonderful if we could change the whole world, but we can't do that. What we have to do is we have to focus on the world, the part of the world that we occupy. And I believe Jeremy said something really cool this morning. We're kind of like dynamite. We do the most good at the place where we're put. And so I think that's exactly right. Excuse me. Tickle in my throat. I'm convinced that you are placed where you are placed to do the greatest amount of good where you are. And so tonight we're going to talk about how do you go about changing your world right in your community. And we'll give you 9 things. I'm going to give you a kind of an introduction to that as we get started. I'm going to tell you a little bit of background. And in order for us to begin here, let's start right out with the first thing I want you to see is this quote. So hold on just a second. This quote I think is very important. It's from Howard Thurman, and it says, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I'm going to give you 9 areas tonight that I really believe that the world needs to see us come to life in those 9 areas, in some of those 9 areas. Now, you can't do all of them, but you can do some of them. So we're going to focus our attention on that. I'm going to give you a little background as to who I am, and we're going to start with what's caused me to be as socially aware as I am, and that is I was at one point an inner city pastor. I've been a pastor for 35 years, and so that work that I did for 13 years in the inner city really helped lay the foundation for my awareness of the need in our society and becoming more socially aware of the conditions that were around me. That helped lay the background for that. The next thing that happened, I've served on several nonprofits. I've been on all kinds of nonprofit boards, dealing with literacy, dealing with poverty, dealing with hunger, dealing with a number of different issues, both in this country and abroad. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. And so that helps me to be more socially aware, because for many times and many people, when you talk about being socially conscious or being aware of the needs of your society, the first thing that goes through their mind is this nonprofit idea. And I want to talk about nonprofits tonight, and I'm going to give you a different light on those, because not only have I served on nonprofit boards, but I've also been the development director for nonprofits. I've been the guy who's been responsible for raising the funds. And so I know both the donor concept, I know the benefactor concept, I know the nonprofit mentality and the nonprofit thinking, and I understand how to put all of those pieces together. And that's the reason why I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you tonight, because this is going to help you to see beyond the nonprofit being the solution in the local community. And then I've also been a nonprofit consultant. As much as I love nonprofits and I've worked hard in that arena, I've also worked as a nonprofit consultant. I'll tell you a little bit about that experience as we go, because that's kind of helped to lay the foundation and help me be aware of the things I'm going to share with you tonight. This webinar has been inside of me for a long time. This has been something that I've wanted to do for a long time. So you are on the ground floor. You're the first people to hear this. You're the very first people to hear this. So I hope that this is going to be helpful and beneficial to you as we go, because it has been extremely life-changing for me. Now, let's talk about, not only have I had that social awareness, but I've also had good business savvy. For the past 25 years, I've been a sales and marketing trainer. Now, don't try to put the 25 and the 35 together, because you'll make me feel a lot older than I really am. But I've been a sales and marketing trainer for 25 years. There's been some overlapping in that 25 and 35, okay? But that helped to lay that business foundation. Not only have I done that, I've started multiple businesses in the process of being involved with 3 startups at the moment right now, and always looking to expand that business platform that I've been involved in. And then number 4, I have also a certified business coach / consultant. And so those things have helped to lay the foundation for what I'm going to share with you tonight. And that is a combination of business and being socially aware. So let me share with you the things that I've learned along the way, because I think this will be helpful. Feel free to make comments as we go. Don't hesitate to do that. That will be helpful. And I will pause occasionally and deal with those comments and the issues as they come up. And I'm more than glad to do so. So feel free to ask any questions as you go. If I run across something, if I say something and you're not sure exactly what that means or exactly why that's important, don't hesitate to comment. And if I don't answer it immediately, I will get to it. Okay. So be aware of the fact that I really want to be able to do that. Okay. So this is what I've learned along the way. Let me introduce you to somebody, and that was my son. This is my son right here, Brent. And Brent, when he was 6, we began to notice that he was very behind. Walked slow, talked slow. Was late learning to walk, was late learning to talk. And by the time he got to be in 5th grade, the school was frustrated. He referred to himself as the file kid, because his file on his evaluations at school was somewhere close to 2.5 inches thick. He'd been tested and tested and tested because he was behind. He was just behind. And he was really struggling because he was behind, and difficult time reading, difficult time grasping what he had read. And we discovered that he had multiple issues. For one thing, what he saw in his left eye was different than what he saw in his right eye. When he would read from left to right, when he got to the middle, he would lose his place because he was seeing 2 different worlds, 2 different hemispheres. And that was just the beginning of the problem, because he also had dyslexia, which meant that sometimes it was flipped upside down, sometimes it was backwards, all kinds of stuff that happened in that crossover arrangement that took place. That and some other things. Difficult time being able to speak as clearly as he wanted to. Just very, very challenging. And I had him tested multiple times at school. They tried to put him in multiple programs. And I realized that there has to be a normal path for abnormal kids. And I eventually had to take him out of school, took him home, taught him myself, and began to understand that our educational system is what had failed him. He wasn't the problem. The problem was we didn't have an educational system that was capable of being able to handle that. And so this passion for my son Brent and the struggle that he was going through and what he was facing and the difficulties that he had helped me to begin to lay the foundation for where I'm at today. Now, this is Brent today. And Brent is now the network engineer for Frontier Communications in Idaho and is just doing a marvelous job. I have talked to 3 different times. I have talked to business owners that have hired Brent, and he has turned their business around. He's an incredibly capable, incredibly competent young man who still struggles at times to make eye contact. He still struggles when he's in a crowded room. He still struggles to be able to get out a sentence, but people will do anything he asks them to do. And he is incredibly capable and very, very competent. And that's my beautiful granddaughter. I just had to make sure she was in the picture when I shared that with you. So the first step in my development was Brent. The next step was a woman named Carolyn Brown. I will never forget Carolyn Brown. Carolyn Brown called me one day. I was an inner city pastor. I was one of the only full-time inner city pastors. And so when somebody would call our church, I would answer the phone. That was unusual. And so she called and she spoke to me and she said, I have 16 kids and I can't make my food stamps. That was back in the days of food stamps. I can't make my food stamps get to the end of the month. So are you all with me? I've noticed that the chats have slowed down. So just say something in the chat so I'll make sure that we're still making connection here. And Carolyn called and she said, it's like the 23rd of the month and she's run out of food and she's run out of food stamps. And she said, I've got this list of stuff. And I said, well, read me the list. I'm curious to see what it is that you're looking for. And so she reads me off the list of stuff that's on her list. And I said, what do you think that that's worth? And she said, oh, probably $35. I said, then I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Because on that list were like cupcakes and popsicles and Pop-Tarts. And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to buy groceries for you. Okay. I'm going to go buy groceries for you, but this is what I'm going to do. I need you to either get the largest pot that you have out or to go to the neighbor. I need the biggest pot you can find. And I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to cook. And I'm going to spend $35 and I'm going to buy $35 worth of groceries. And I'm going to show you how to feed 16 kids on $35 worth of groceries until the end of the month. And so I went to the grocery store. I bought 2 sacks of groceries. And in those days, I could get almost 2 sacks of groceries for $35. And I carried it into her house, set it down on the counter, and I proceeded to cook her a meal. And I said, now tomorrow I want you to add this to it, and the next day I want you to add this, and then 2 days later I want you to take this meat out of the freezer, and I want you to dump that in there, and then I took her through the end of the month. And I left. And she called me at the end of the month and she said, we made it. We made it. We got to the end of the month on what you brought to the house. I didn't know you could do that. As a matter of fact, we've never eaten like that. And it was good. And I realized that what we have is not, it doesn't do any good to take my paycheck and carve $35 out of that and give it to somebody who needs the $35 if I don't teach them what to do with it. And Carolyn was a classic example of that. She was every single month, by the 20th to the 23rd, she was out of money, she was out of food. And for just a few dollars and a couple of hours of time, able to teach her how to do that. And from that point on, she did an amazing job of taking care of those kids. We have to do more than just throw money at the problem. And sometimes what happens in the nonprofit arena is that we see the need and we get people to give, and they give generously and they give graciously because that's what they know how to do. They've got the paycheck they can carve $35 out of, so they give it. And then it gets used in a fashion that perpetuates the problem and doesn't fix it. And Carolyn fixed me because she helped me to understand that not everybody wants to stay there. Sometimes what they really need is they need somebody to teach them, to coach them along the way. And I'm going to show you what that is in just a few minutes, okay? So stick with me. Linda, I'm glad you were able to make it. Walmart has a good connection. So let's go back. I've got another story to tell you. This one is really interesting, okay? Monday, Tuesday, orange, Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, orange, Thursday, Friday. Monday, Tuesday, orange, Thursday, Friday. Promise you, this is an amazing testimony. This is from a woman whose son was on the autism spectrum. And she said, I'm tired of people feeling sorry for me. I'm tired of people thinking that somehow we're going to someday come up with a cure for my son. What I want to know is, why does he think Wednesday should be called orange? He never says Wednesday. He says orange. He never says Wednesday. He's never said Wednesday. It's Monday, Tuesday, orange, Thursday. I read that story and I wept, because I realized that we have this picture of normal. We have this picture of normal. And her friends felt sorry for her because for her son, Wednesday should be orange. Instead of trying to understand, there's something special about that. Now, this story impacted me so badly. It impacted me so deeply. I shouldn't say badly. It impacted me deeply, that what I'm about to tell you next, because the next one on the list is the center. About 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was hired by the center in Houston, Texas. And I went to the center. They had made the transition from dealing with a portion of the population that had Down syndrome to dealing with people with autism. And they had a residential facility, and they had taken some of their older Downs patients or Downs residents and moved them out into homes that had a more home-friendly kind of environment, where it was more suitable for people who were 50 and older. And got away from the apartment style living, and they took that apartment style living and they began to transition to a facility where people on the autism spectrum with ASD were able to come and live, and they could live on their own independently in that facility. And they hired me to be the consultant. They needed to raise certain amount of money, and they were short every year, and they hired me to come in and find where the shortages were at, see what we could do to turn that around. And when I agreed to come, they were going to put me up in a hotel, and I said, no, I want to stay in the residence facility at the center. And I did. I stayed on the 6th floor, which was the floor for the 20 to 25-year-old young men who were verbal and functional, but had autism, where they were staying on that floor. And something happened to me while I was there. And that something profoundly changed me, and it changed me forever. I mean, it forever changed who I am. I got on the elevator one day, and and there was like 5 or 6 other guys on the elevator. They had the facility was 9 stories tall, and so by the time I got to the 6th floor, it had other people on it. And on the 6th floor, I got on the elevator, and there were a number of other guys on the elevator. And one of the guys said, I've seen you on the grounds a few times, and I see you coming and going in and out of the building. When did you move in here? And I realized that for him, I was just like him. I was just living in the same building that he happened to be living in. And I went back up to my room, sat on the end of my bed, called my wife, and I cried. Because I realized that I had been treating the residents there differently than I would have treated them had they not had ASD. Not intentionally, not because I wanted to. I chose to live there. I chose to live among them. But they thought that was cool. They just thought it was normal. And I thought it was time that I started to treat that in a normal fashion. So I began to change my language, and I'll talk about that later in just a minute too. Because I think one of the ways that we profoundly change a community is we change the way that we refer to things. And I saw that. So when I left the center and I stopped working there as a consultant, found what we were looking for, and some things changed and some things took place, and I no longer went. From that point on, every Wednesday for 2 years, I wore an orange shirt just to remind myself that it was orange, not Wednesday. We got to start looking at things differently. We got to start seeing things in a different light. So that's my personal journey. Now let's talk about some things I need you to understand. I don't have anything to sell. I'm not trying to sell anything. This is not a sales pitch. I do sales pitch webinars all the time. And as I was putting this together, I went, somewhere you got to stick in here. This is not a sales pitch webinar, Eric. This is something that I think all of us need to understand. If we're going to make a significant impact in our community, if we're going to do the greatest amount of good and still be able to be profitable, then there's some things we need to understand. So let me share with you some things we need to understand. I don't have anything to, first of all, I don't have anything to sell. This is not about a product or a program. This is not trying to sell something. This is trying to share something. And I think this message needs to be shared. The second thing I want you to know is this is not about nonprofits, because I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I first of all, I love the nonprofit world. I have some great friends that are in the nonprofit. My good friend Jennifer Yarborough is a nonprofit guru and raises massive amounts of money for nonprofits. And so I have a heart and a desire for nonprofits. I've started 2 organizations that service nonprofits. And so I get that. But I also get this. A nonprofit can be a black hole. It can be a drain on the community. It separates us rather than brings us together. It divides rather than unites. It is exclusive rather than inclusive. So this is not about nonprofits. I'm going to explain what I mean by all of that in just a minute, okay? But it's not about programs or products. It's not about nonprofits. It's not about dividing what you have. When I was talking about the $35, if I could give $35 every month, we are always focusing our attention on, what can you give? And you see the commercials and the bleeding heart commercials about if you support this with what $17 a month can do for you, or what $9 a month, or your gift of this. That's about dividing what you have. And I don't want to talk tonight about dividing what you have. I have a different idea than that. And so allow me to share with you an idea that's different than dividing what you have. So with that understanding, this is not about programs or products. It's not about nonprofits, and it's not about dividing what you have. Are you all interested in hearing what it is about? If you're interested in hearing what it is about, put yes in the chat box while I get a drink and clear my throat. I know we have a pretty good delay, but Linda says yes. Anybody else? Anybody else? Good, good. Connie says yes. Walter says let's go. Jeremy said yes. So let me share with you what this is about. I think this is important. There's no magic here. There's nothing magical. This is just a journey for me. And I wanted to share that journey with other people because I think that if you all had exactly the same kind of vision that I've had, we would make a significant step in making a difference and go about changing our world. So that's my passion. That's my desire tonight, is just to share those things with you. Linda, I understand. I wasn't trying to be hard. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. You're standing in the Walmart at on this webinar, so I love you and I appreciate what you're doing. Okay, so let's get started. What difference does this make to you, and where do you fit in? Let's take a look at this. First of all, I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm going to assume, first of all, that you want to change the world. You're here. You wouldn't have attended. I purposely called this webinar Change the World webinar because I think you want to do that. And I wanted to exclude people who aren't interested in that. I'm not interested in people who their whole purpose is to make money. They think that if they make enough money, they're going to be able to change the world. Well, this is not about being able to be Bill Gates, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I believe that you want to change the world. I think that you believe that it's possible to change your portion of the world. And because you believe that it's possible to change your portion of the world, you're here and you've said yes, and you want to go on and you want to do this and you want to figure out where can I fit in and what can I do to make a difference in my world. I'm going to give you some things tonight. I'm going to give you some steps, but I'm going to give you 9 places where you want to focus. And then I'm also going to assume that you're not really sure where to begin, because I've always had this passion about making a difference in my world, but I didn't always know where to begin. And so I'm going to assume that you're here tonight because you don't know where to begin. I had some people who said, made comments on when I did the live feed about this, and I've done it for 4 days now. They made comments that I'm already doing this. Well, then that means they already know where to begin. So more power to them. I applaud them for that. I think I will do everything I can to support and encourage that. Okay, because I'm not selling anything. So if you know where to begin, that's great. But I'm going to assume that the people who are on here now don't know where to begin, and that's the reason why you're here. And then number 4, I think you really wish you could do more. Somebody made the comment today that, you do what you can. Well, I think that again gets into that dividing thing. And, I'm going to take what I have and I'm going to divide it up. Well, if I take what I have and I divide it up, then I only have a portion of what I have. So if what I have was enough for me and I divide it up, then I don't have enough for the other person because they need 2 portions to make what I currently have. And so dividing doesn't work. And that's not where the focus is going to be tonight. So I want you to understand that I believe that you're here because you wish you could do more. And we're going to show you some ways in which you can do that. I love quotes. So I had somebody told me the other day, well, if I were Bill Gates, well, let's see what Bill Gates had to say about this. Bill Gates said, effective philanthropy requires a lot of time and creativity. The same kind of focus and skills that building a business requires. So in other words, as I read that, this is what went through my mind, okay? And this is what I'm going to share with you tonight. If it takes the same skills, if it takes the same kind of skill, if it takes the same kind of effort, if it takes the same kind of capabilities to be able to be philanthropic as it does to build a business, why don't we do them at the same time? Think that sounds like a good idea? What if we take those same skills of time, creativity, focus, all of the things that are necessary in order to build a business, and we build a business and we're philanthropic at the same time? Do you think that would accomplish something? I mean, rather than duplicating the effort, rather than building a business that I can then make enough profit off of, that I can give the profit to a nonprofit so that they can perpetuate, why don't we just do them together? Now, I don't believe for a minute that was Bill Gates' intention when he made that quote. I think what he was saying was, look, I build a business and I can be philanthropic. But I'm saying, let's take that the next step. Let's build a business, apply the same skills that are necessary to do that, and be philanthropic at the same time. Now, that's a great possibility. And it looks like some of you are agreeing with me. That's a pretty good idea. Jeremy's saying, let's kill two birds with one stone. But he didn't say to kill two birds. I think that's what that quote implies. But you get my point. So let's take a look there. We had, what if I was Bill Gates? Let's take a look. Where do I start? Okay. It looks to me like I accidentally shuffled my cards. So stick around here. Let me make sure I got this right. When I was coaching debate in high school, I used to tell my students all the time, if you don't know where to start, look for a model. And so here's a model. Always look for a model. If you've got a model that shows me what has been done, let's take that model that has been done and let's apply it to this situation. Take an existing model and apply it. So again, another quote. I got to grab a quote here for you. And this is the quote. I look for what needs to be done. After all, that's how the universe designs itself. Buckminster Fuller was one of the greatest designers ever. A kook came up with some great ideas. He always referred to this as our spaceship Earth. But he was an interesting guy. But he said, when I'm trying to solve a problem, I look for what needs to be done. After all, that's how the universe designs itself. And I'm going to build on that as we go here. Okay. So that's my model. I'm going to model this quote from Bill Gates after how the universe designs itself. Does that make any sense to y'all at all? Are you with me? To achieve goals with a singular effort. And that's what I'm talking about, Jeremy. How do we take what seems to be diametrically opposed things like nonprofits and profit? How do we put those two together? How do we bring them together? So we don't have a win-win, we have a win-win-win. And we bring those pieces together so that the community as a whole benefits. And that's really what I want to focus on in the few minutes that we have left tonight, because I promise you we'd be done in an hour. We're 32 minutes in, and so we're going to jump right on this, and you're going to see where we're going with this. So here are 9 areas where you can begin to make a difference and a profit. Where you can make a difference and a profit. Because that's not necessarily what Bill Gates implied, but it's where Eric's going to take this. Okay? How do you make a difference and a profit? I had a long conversation the other day with the director, who's a really good friend of mine, the director at the United Way, which is just down the street from me. And I said, whatever we do, we don't want to be a drain on the charitable giving of the community. We've got enough nonprofits now. We've got enough people who are being philanthropic in what they're giving. Giving is up. Let's maximize that benefit. Let's make those things be as profitable as they can. So 9 areas where you can make a difference and a profit. And this is, any one of you can grab any one of these ideas and do anything you want to do with this, because it's pretty easy. It's pretty amazing. The first one is any activity that focuses on love, relationships, communication, and harmony. Any activity focuses on love, relationships, communication, and harmony. I mean, if you are involved in an activity that does any one of those 4 things, Ron is asking if we can get a recording because it's breaking up. Are we breaking up? Is everybody able to hear me? Let me know if you can hear me okay, because I don't want anybody to lose this. Because if we're breaking up, the recording will be that way too. But if it's just on your end, is it just Rana? Can somebody else respond here, please, and let me know? Is anybody else having trouble? Okay. Linda's at the Walmart, so that might have something to do with her having to refresh. Okay, I'm going to proceed because if everybody else is saying we're loud, then Ronnie, definitely there will be a replay, and I'll make sure that everybody who signed up for the webinar gets a copy of the replay. Okay, and the replay is available on YouTube, so it's easy to get that. All right, so won't deal with that issue again. But thank you for bringing that out, Ron. I wanted to make sure before we went any further that we had that taken care of. So any activity that focuses on love, relationships, communication, and harmony. My wife and I live in a bad neighborhood. We purposely live here. We live here by choice. We live here because, and we shop here. We go to the grocery stores here. We buy gas here. We do everything that we do here. And wherever we go, we smile and we're pleasant, and we're happy, and we feel like somebody has got to be happy in the neighborhood. And so we're just happy in the hood because that's an activity that we can do that focuses on love, relationships, communication, and harmony. I might be the only guy in town that the checkout clerk from the grocery store runs up and gives me a hug when I run into her at the McDonald's or at the Dairy Queen or someplace like that, because we can do that. That's easy. It doesn't cost anything. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to focus on love, relationships, communication, and harmony. Doesn't cost anything, doesn't take anything, and everybody can do that. And I'll talk about communication in a minute, okay? Communication is going to be part of our action plan. Number 2, we can change the community consciousness by empowering people. We can change the community consciousness by empowering people. Now, when I took the food to Carolyn Brown's house, I was probably the only person to go in that neighborhood in 25 years that looked like me. And when I went to her house, I was watched carefully, but I was never bothered. And I was never bothered because I was taking care of Carolyn. And I was able to empower her, and without having to take her on to support. I think probably over the next 3 or 4 years, we may have helped her 3 or 4 times. We empowered her by teaching her how to cook. She would call me and say, if I put this in here, is this going to make it do this? And now, I didn't mind those calls at all, but we had empowered her. You have 2 options. You can continue to give money to the problem, or you can empower the people to solve the problem. And my focus needed to be on empowering people. And I could tell stories about that all night long, but I want you to see that that's something that we can do. That's something that we can do. I had a guy show up at my house one day and said, I need $20 for me to be able to get to work. And I said, where do you live? And he told me, and I said, where do you work? And he told me, and I said, there's a bus that goes within 2 blocks of where you're at. I have the bus schedule right here, costs 50 cents. Here's 50 cents to get on the bus. You can go get your paycheck. You can put gas in your truck, but I'd highly recommend you take the bus. And he wasn't very happy with me when he left. Grabs my map of the bus schedule and the 50 cents, and off he goes. A month later, he comes back and he said, man, I've been riding the bus to work all the time. He said, I saved $100 last month. Empowering people, that's what we have to do. We've got to empower people. We can change the community consciousness by empowering people. I mean, we're paying tax dollars to have that bus run. He needs to be able to take advantage of that, and we need to empower them to do that. And it's not their first thought. So that was helpful. We need to start empowering people. We can change the community consciousness by doing that. Number 3, producing and distributing healthy, sustainable food. Now, this is a commercial venture. This is something that can be done. We can produce and distribute healthy food. Do you know that there is a huge, they're calling these food deserts. And a food desert is when there is nothing left but convenience stores in the inner city that sell processed food, that sell junk food, that sell stuff that's not good for you, and you perpetuate the problem. We have an issue here in Huntsville where people will go to the food closet or the food bank, get the food, walk across the street to the convenience store. They can get a free gallon of milk, walk over to the convenience store, sell that gallon of milk for $2 or $3, and sell the food that they have and buy cigarettes. We've created a food desert, and we're trying to fix it with food rather than fix it with empowering them. But we can commit ourselves to producing and distributing healthy, sustainable food. I got all kinds of ideas about that, but I want you to see what's possible there in eliminating these food deserts and starting to create a healthy, sustainable food process. Okay? Number four. And that is anything that involves physical, emotional, spiritual healing for individuals, families, neighborhoods, and communities. That's why my wife and I like to go to the grocery store and smile. It's why we hug the checkout clerk. It's the reason why we are kind to the people that we see. We're trying to bring emotional healing to a hurting community. And that's the kind of thing that we can do. We can do that. It doesn't cost much to do that. It doesn't cost much to give some time to that. If you could see the number of text messages that I answer on a daily basis, people who are struggling physically, emotionally, spiritually, and they need help and healing. And taking the time to do that, we can all do that. That's something any of us can do. You say, well, where's the profit in that? Well, there's the profit in the food, but this is an area where you can bring gifts and abilities, and you can make a difference. And if we begin to raise, if we're in the business of physical, emotional, or spiritual healing for a living, we can bring that to a community, and we can just being there can make a big difference. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Now, I can show you how to make a profit at that, but I want you to see it, because if this is in your realm, this is something that you can do. This can be beneficial to your community. And you start, instead of seeing it just as a business, see it as an opportunity to do good. See it as an opportunity to bring life and vitality to your community. Y'all are getting very quiet in the chat over here. I'm just watching, see what's going on, okay? So that was number 4. Number 5 is becoming the catalyst for social change and social justice and underserved. And I'm going to give you a new terminology. I'm going to call it the undiscovered population. We have an underserved population. We have an underserved population. Those are communities that have been abandoned. Those are communities that have been left behind. Those are communities that no longer, that's the food deserts that I was talking about before. Those are underserved communities, underserved populations. But we also have the undiscovered populations. Monday, Tuesday, orange. Thursday, Friday. That's undiscovered. There's something there. There's some value that's there. There's some reason why God's created that person in the way that they've been created, because I believe He created all of us perfectly. We need to discover what that is. When I went back and told you about my son, Brent, and by the way, it's not easy to talk about that. To this day, it's not. I brag about how good he is, but it still hurts when I think about that. I was an undiscovered portion of the population, because the people at the school district, one of the finest school districts in the nation, people at the school district said, there's nothing we can do. You might as well expect for him to live with you for the rest of his life. And I'm going to tell you, we discovered who he was, and we helped him to develop who he was. And he's an amazing guy. An amazing guy. I could talk all night long about the things that he has accomplished. but I want you to see that as an undiscovered portion of the population. And when we stop thinking about how do we make space for people and we start understanding the place for people, then we've moved from them having a disability to let's discover what is the value of that disability. And that's where the real power is at. That's where you can make a difference. That's the value that's there. Okay, I got an important question here. Yes, Linda, that was the boy who was at the live conference. Yes, that was him. And if you got a chance to spend any time with him at all, you'll understand what I'm talking about how incredible he really is. Still struggles with some things, struggled being in that crowd, struggled with making eye contact, but he's an incredible young man. So, physical, emotional, spiritual healing for individuals, families, neighborhoods, and communities, becoming the catalyst for social change and social justice in underserved and undiscovered populations. I'm going to have to hurry. The next one is this: serving, supporting, and sustaining change makers. Now, no one's exempt from this. Nobody's exempt from this. We can all be supportive of those who are striving to make a change. We can all be supportive of those who support a community. We can all be supportive of those who are discovering the value that certain populations have to our communities. And we see that and we plug them in, and we're not trying to make a place for them. So I think what we've done is we've tried to make a place for people with disabilities rather than helping them to discover what their place is. And when they discover what their place is, the world becomes a different place. Because just like everyone else, they're gifted, talented, and placed for a purpose. And we need to help them to discover what that purpose is. My wife thinks that I'm a magnet for people who have struggled educationally, who've struggled because of developmental disabilities. And I said, I'm not a magnet for that. I just simply accept them as being just like me. And they gravitate that way. And we can all do that. That's supporting. And you can keep doing what you do. But when you look at your business, when you look at your business model, when you look at the things that you do, am I missing a portion of the population that their input might make me better? Because I'm going to promise you, Brent's input has always made me better. But he was the kid who was supposed to have to live in my basement for the rest of his life. Serve, support, sustain those people who make a change. Next one. This is number 8. Providing, using, and selling sustainable consumer products. We can make a difference in the planet that we have by not using it up. That's got value. And that changes our thinking. It moves us to, how do I make the most of this person with whatever they bring to the table? How do I help them to plug into where they belong so that when they plug into where they belong, we're making the most of that? And I want to talk about this in 3 lights. I want to talk about people, I want to talk about places, and I want to talk about products. Because every community has places that should be recycled. That place should be turned into something valuable. The reason why our inner cities, and I've spent a lot of time in the inner city, the reason why our inner cities have become a wasteland is because it was better for the people to move out to the suburbs and build something new than it was to make something meaningful where they were at. And remember I said the model, and the model was the universe. We're the only species on the planet that has waste. Everything else uses, every other species makes use of everything that's available to them. And I'll tell you a really funny story about this. When I lived in Wyoming for a while, Wyoming is a desolate desert, and there's not much there. And I would drive outside of the town where I lived because there was an eagle's nest up in the top of this power pole. And I was watching that eagle build that nest, and then it raised 3 young ones in that nest. And that was kind of fascinating for me to watch. And I was walking around that pole one night looking up at the eagle's nest, and I noticed that the eagle had used somebody's leftover, thrown away, out of the refuge, out of the landfill bra to make the nest out of. And I thought, man, if somebody can throw that away and an eagle can turn it into a portion of its nest, we need to learn something from that. And so we need to focus on sustainable places and sustainable products and sustainable, recyclable, usable people. And if we can learn how to do that, we'll make a huge difference in our neighborhoods. I got one more in this list of 9, and I've got some action items, and the action items will go really quick. We need to work in harmony with nature. By that, I just mean learning how that if an eagle can use a bra to make a nest, then we need to learn how to use what we have as well. And we need to learn how to make the most out of what we have as well. So now let me give you some action items here. I'm gonna quickly get through these action items because Buckminster Fuller said this: pollution is nothing but the resources that we've not been harvesting. We allow them to disperse because we've been ignorant of their value. And what I wanted to do tonight was to help you to understand that there is value that we're walking past every day. There's value that we're missing every day. So here's some things that we can do in order to, in my words, recycle, so that we don't create pollution, but instead we actually use the resources that we have. We harvest those to bring the greatest value. So here they are. Number one, we have to change our language. Let's stop talking about a community of people who have a disease, or a community of people who have a disability, or a community of people who belong to a particular race, and let's just start talking about them as being part of the population. We have a population of people, and we stop using these words that divide us, and we start using words that I'm not talking about being politically correct. I'm talking about being inclusive. We got to change our language. We got to change our view. I was having this conversation with a lady on Friday, and she said, Eric, just listening to you, I'm going to change the way I talk about this. I can't talk about that anymore that way. I'm going to change my language. And so action plan number 1 is change your language. Number 2, pick an area. Take one of those 9 things. What can I do? Where can I begin? Can I go to a different grocery store and just be happy? I mean, can I start there? Pick an area. Can I develop some sustainable, healthy kind of food and make it available in my community? Can I share in that manner? My grandparents fed the entire neighborhood. They traded potatoes for eggs. They traded potatoes for milk. They fed the neighborhood, and they bartered and they exchanged. And can I pick an area where I can do that same kind of thing, so that I can maximize my profit and maximize my impact in the community at the same time? Somebody needs what you've got. Somebody needs for you to share what you have. Pick an area and figure out how you're going to do that. Number 3, meet some socially aware business people. To start talking to people who are more socially aware than other people are. You can tell real quickly whether they're all about profit or if they're about social consciousness. And I could tell stories all night long about that. But meet some people who are concerned about the community. Find out what they're doing. Get to know them. Meet them. You can do that. That doesn't cost you anything, and it might turn out to be incredibly profitable for you as you can share this vision with them. The next one is volunteer. There's always places that can volunteer. There's plenty of people who will take volunteers. The next one is stop thinking normal and start thinking undiscovered. Let's stop thinking about this person's disability and let's start thinking about how we can discover that person's value. I have a young man in my church who has cerebral palsy, and he can barely talk. And he has a girlfriend, and she has spina bifida, and she can barely walk, and she can't walk. And so I have these two, and it probably takes Nathan about 25 minutes to send me a text message, but he does it once a week. And once a week, he sends me a text message and says, "I love you." I don't think about him as having a disability. I think about how many people are missing out because they don't know him. That's what I think about. He's undiscovered because people look at him and they think, that's a problem. They miss out on the joy of having somebody send you a text message in the middle of the day that says, "Hey, just thinking about you, I love you." Start thinking undiscovered. If we think about what's to be discovered there, rather than what's to be recognized as a disability, then we move away from pity and we move to the place where there's real power. The next one, look for opportunities. There are opportunities everywhere. You may see a building. What if we did this in that building? What if we recycled that? What if we turned that building that's abandoned there into a place where we taught kids how to read because they're going home to parents that dropped out of school, and the school's expecting them to go home and their mom and dad review their reading, and there isn't a dad and mom dropped out of school in ninth grade. What if we look for those opportunities? Let's start looking for opportunities to be able to make a difference. That's how we change our world. We look for opportunities. And then we can negotiate, then we can talk, then we can do something powerful, then we can do something different. Then we can begin to create something that becomes valuable in your community. And then lastly, if you want to talk about this more, I want to talk to you. I told you I didn't have anything to sell, and I don't. I'm a coach. This is what I do. I coach people in business. But I'd really like to talk to you enough that I give you this link because I really want to talk. If you're interested in changing your world and you want some ideas and you want to talk about some ideas and you want to say, is this going to work? Where do I go? How do I do this? Whatever, then I'm gonna open up an offer right here. And what that offer is simply an opportunity for you to secure an appointment with me. And it's that link right there. And from there, you'll be able to get a 15-minute phone conversation. And we can talk about how you want to see that vision of changing your world played out. And maybe I can help you put that together. Maybe you need a coach. Maybe you need something. I don't know. But I'm not selling you anything tonight. I'm just simply saying it's time for us. The world needs us. Needs us to make a difference. Needs us to be involved. Needs us to make a powerful difference. And so the whole purpose of tonight was to share with you 9 ideas, 9 places where we could be involved. And let you know that if you want to talk about any of those places, I wanted to give you some action plans, 7 of them, and give you some things that we could do. And if you want to talk about that, this is not, I mean, there's some cool stuff going on in the United States. We have now a new corporate structure. It's called an L3C. And an L3C is the best of the nonprofit world. You have to have a socially conscious awareness. You have to have a benefit to your local community, but it has all the protections of a legal or a limited liability company. Now, that isn't possible everywhere in the world. It's not possible in every state in the United States, but it is at least a move in the right direction. It's where a business now is aware of the fact that, hey, I've got to make a difference. I've got to be socially aware in my community, and I've got to make a difference. And I want to share those things with you tonight. I'm not trying to sell you on the L3C concept. That's not my point. But I wanted you to see that there's some things that you can do, and you can do them immediately. There's some things I'm going to do, and I'm going to do them immediately. And if you'd like to talk about what you want to do or what I'm going to do or anything else, feel free to hit that button right there and hook up with me. Get an appointment. I'll be glad to talk to you. Okay. Told you I'd hold this to an hour. We are right at an hour. By the time I close this, I will have hit exactly 1 hour. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's my heart's desire. It's my prayer. It's my passion that you change your world. Because if you change yours and I change mine, it's not long until we change the whole world. Thank you for joining me tonight. I love you. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on.